Testing 1, 2, okay. Yeah. No. Okay, it's 7 p.m. and it's time to resume our evening session. Okay, and I'm going to begin now. We're going to be dealing in this evening and then through most of tomorrow, we'll be dealing with and practicing the meditation on the 4 elements, the 4 material elements that constitute the physical body. The first, I want to deal in a more general way with the purpose behind these 3 exercises in the contemplation of the body. That is the meditation on the impure or unattractive nature of the body, the meditation on the elements, and then the last topic of meditation or the last contemplation in the contemplation of the body, and that is the contemplation of the disintegration, decomposition of a corpse. I said when I was introducing the contemplation of the body practices that these exercises, we could see them as having 2 primary purposes. The first is to establish present moment mindfulness, to establish mindfulness in the present moment, to bring the experience of the present moment into the range of direct awareness. Or we could say it's to anchor mindfulness in the present moment, to establish presence, presence of mind. And this purpose is particularly fulfilled by the practice of anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing, when we're following each breath in and out in its present immediacy. And then it's extended when we practice anapanasati in the form of whole body awareness, experiencing the whole body in its present immediacy as we are breathing in and out. The walking meditation also serves that purpose, since when we're doing the walking meditation, we are paying precise and intensive or precise and focused attention to each of our steps, the left step, the right step. And with all of the other postures also, whatever we are doing, we are aware what we are doing as we are doing it. And this also comes into play, this focus on present moment awareness, mindfulness, attending to present activities in the section on clear comprehension, at least in one aspect of clear comprehension, where whatever we are doing, we are acting, we are undertaking that action with a clear knowing of what we are doing, exactly what we are doing. When going out, coming back, looking ahead, looking to the side, dressing, eating, going to the toilet, going to sleep, waking up, whatever we are doing, we know what we are doing. The other purpose, primary purpose of mindfulness of the body, and in fact of all the exercises included in the Satipatthana method, is to gain knowledge and understanding. And this starts to enter the picture through the clear comprehension, the section on clear comprehension, where we not only do we know what we are doing while we are doing it, but we comprehend the purpose of our activity. We know why we are undertaking this activity. What are the benefits to be gained from it? What are the obstacles to its fulfillment? How can we go about our activities most effectively and bring them into line with the practice of the Dhamma? So there already we see an element of understanding or knowledge enters the picture. And the focus of knowledge becomes most prominent in the last three exercises, the impurity of or the anatomical parts of the body, the elements, and the disintegration of the corpse. And we could see this aspect of Satipatthana, the emphasis on knowledge, in a sutta that occurs in the collected discourses on Satipatthana. It's the Satipatthana Samyutta, Sutta number 4. That's chapter 47 in the Samyutta Nikaya, Sutta number 4, called the Ukachela Sutta. In that sutta, the Buddha says that those monks who are newcomers to the Dhamma, who have just recently gone forth, they should be trained in contemplating the body as a body and the other satipatthanas. For what purpose, he says? In order to know the body as it really is, in order to know feelings as they really are, in order to know the state of mind, the states of mind as they really are, in order to know dharmas, phenomena as they really are. So even for newcomers, relative beginners, the purpose is to know things as they really are. And then the Buddha goes on and he says, for those practitioners who have advanced in the training, who have already gotten a elementary or an initial knowledge of things as they really are, even for them, the four establishments of mindfulness should be practiced. And what is the reason for them to practice the four satipatthanas? In order to gain full understanding of the body, to gain full understanding of feelings, states of mind, and phenomena. And then the Buddha goes on and he says, even those who are arahats, who are liberated in mind, they continue to practice the four satipatthanas, but they practice it detached from the body, detached from feelings, detached from the mind, detached from phenomena. So we could see that the aim or purpose of the practice of Satipatthana is to gain the knowledge of things as they really are, to gain understanding of things in accordance with their true nature. And it's this knowledge, that understanding, when it's fully developed, then issues into insight, the insight knowledges. And those insight knowledges, when they mature, break the bonds, they bring the realization, the attainment of the world transcending paths that cut off the bonds and fetters and issue in the final goal, which the Buddha says is the realization of nibbana, the attainment of nirvana. And so we saw that the practice of contemplating the body in terms of its constituent parts, its organs, tissues, fluids, and so on, gives us we call this a clear and realistic picture of the body that dispels the superficial impression of the glittering surface of bodily appearance. The glittering surface of the body is something beautiful and attractive and alluring and intoxicating. And that is what triggers the desire to enjoy the bodies of others and sexual enjoyment. And so contemplating the body in terms of its constituents, the primary purpose here is to help to reduce sensual desire, to help to eliminate, especially in the form of sexual lust. And that forms an important part, in fact, a critical part in the training of a monastic. But even what I found in Sri Lanka, even lay people practice the meditation on the parts of the body. Um, it, there is a larger monastery near the hermitage where I was living in Kandy in Sri Lanka. And on the full moon and new moon days, many lay people would come to that large monastery to practice meditation. And the meditation that was taught there was the meditation on the 32 parts of the body. Another benefit of the contemplation of the body in terms of its constituent parts is to reduce conceit and self-evaluation on the basis of the body. So here we're relating to the body not as an external object of attraction, but to the way we judge and evaluate our own bodies. And particularly in this American culture or modern culture, where there's so much emphasis on rating oneself, comparing oneself to others in terms of one's relative attractiveness. Doing this contemplation of the internal constituents of the body, we see that the body is inherently not attractive. And so there's no reason to build up conceit if we happen to be beautiful, handsome, strong, or have a lovely figure. No reason to be proud and arrogant because of our physical beauty, if we have that. And if we happen to be unattractive in worldly terms, homely, not to have such an attractive figure, no reason to feel downcast and inferior and dejected, since the body is just a body, and when we remove the external layer of skin, what we find underneath is very much the same, no matter who it might be. And also another benefit of this contemplation of the body, which I briefly alluded to earlier in the afternoon, is that it promotes a sense of human solidarity. Since when we look behind the external features, especially the color of the skin or the racial and ethnic features of the body, we see that all bodies are essentially alike. They have the same organs, the same tissues, the same fluids. So the only thing that's different is difference in the pigmentation of the skin or in other superficial features. Okay, so this is the way the knowledge of the body as it is emerges through the contemplation of the anatomical parts. But now we come to the contemplation of the material elements. And this contemplation, the primary purpose is to remove, or at least to reduce, the conceit I am that attaches itself to the body, or to remove the notions of I and mine that attach to the body. And this is done by seeing the body as composed of four primary elements, which are the primary elements of ancient Indian physics and pretty much shared by the ancient physical systems of, I guess, of all of the world's cultures. So the four primary elements are enumerated as, or designated, the earth element, the water element, the fire or heat element, and the air element. But those conventional terms, earth, water, fire, and air, are understood to be kind of metaphorical terms signifying particular properties of matter. So the earth element signifies the property of solidity, substantiality, of substance, of having some kind of material substance, seen especially in the characteristic of hardness, or along the continuum of hardness and softness. The water element represents matter in its element, in its aspect of fluidity, liquidity, being a fluid or a liquid. And it's manifested in the property of flowing or oozing. And it's also said to have the characteristic of binding, cohesion, connecting together, binding together. The fire element represents the property of heat or thermal energy. And the air element represents the property of movement, particularly the movement of expansion and contraction. Expansion and contraction. Now, there are two ways to practice the meditation on the elements that we find laid out in the suttas. And I'm going to show these two. Yeah. Let me share the screen. Okay, so the two methods are a concise method and an extended method or more elaborate method. The concise method, I would say, is more directly experiential, and the elaborate method is more conceptual or reflective. And we find the concise method laid out in the Satipatthana Sutta. Let me increase the size of the text. Okay, so here the text says that the monk or the practitioner reviews or examines this same body, that is one's own body, however it is placed in any position, as consisting of elements thus. In this body, there are the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element. Nothing further is said about the method of practice, but the way this is explained in the commentaries is that one takes the distinctive characteristics of each of the elements, and then one scans and explores the entire body to discover, to discern, to experience that element within the body through its characteristic. And then the sutta gives a simile to illustrate this mode of practice. A little bit shocking simile for a Buddhist who observes the practice of non-harming. So suppose a skilled butcher or his apprentice had killed a cow and was seated at the crossroads with it cut up into pieces. So the butcher kills the cow and divides it up into, maybe we could say, slices, slabs of sirloin steak, slabs of tenderloin steak, ribs. I don't know the parts of meat that are sold in the market, but when you do this, you lose the perception, the idea that these are parts of a cow, and all you see are the different slices of steak, of beef in different forms. And so when you review the body in terms of the elements, according to the commentary, then you lose the perception of this body as a unified whole that constitutes the basis for the notion of self, as the basis for clinging to the ideas of I and mine. And what you see instead is a material configuration consisting of these four elements, which are continuous with and interacting with their counterparts in the external world. So this is the concise way of practice. And now the more elaborate way of practice we find in the Buddha's instructions to his son Rahula in Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 62. And you'll see that the first two elements here are exactly the same constituents that we find in the meditation on the unattractive nature of the body, except that now the emphasis is different. Here one is not looking at these parts in terms of their impure, unattractive, unbeautiful nature, but rather as representing, in one case, the earth element, in the other case, the water element. Okay, so what is the earth element? So whatever internally belonging to oneself is solid, solidified, and clung to, that is, and then it enumerates all of the parts, head hairs, body hairs, and so on, down through feces, and then the commentaries add the brain. So all of these parts represent the earth element, and also anything else internally belonging to oneself that is solid, solidified, and clung to, that is called the internal earth element. If first we're going to do the internal elements, I'm going to bring in the external elements tomorrow, or the relation between the internal and the external elements tomorrow. Maybe we could just read this now. Okay, so then one sees both the internal earth element and the external earth element are simply the earth element. And so when you see the continuity between internal earth element and external element, how they're simply the earth element, then one could see them with proper wisdom. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. And so then when one sees the earth element with proper wisdom, then one becomes disenchanted with the earth element, and the mind becomes dispassionate towards the earth element. Okay, then we have the water element. So what is the water element? The water element may be either internal or external. What is the internal water element? Whatever internally belonging to oneself is watery and clung to. Or maybe I would say whatever belonging to oneself is liquidish, and clung to. And then it enumerates the 12 liquid parts, bile, phlegm, and so on, down to urine. And it adds whatever else internally belonging to oneself is liquidish, and clung to. This is called the internal water element. And both the internal water element, the external water element are simply the water element. And that too should be seen with correct wisdom. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. And when one sees this with correct wisdom, then one becomes disenchanted with the body consisting of the water element, and the mind becomes dispassionate towards the body consisting of the water element. Then the fire element. Again, this might be internal or external. So what is the internal fire element? Whatever internally belonging to oneself is fiery, or is hot, heated, and clung to. And then it says that by which one is warmed. That is the intrinsic temperature of the body, usually in the range of 98.6 Fahrenheit. That by which one ages, because it's believed, at least in ancient Indian physiology, that it's heat that causes the body to eventually to grow old and decay. And that by which one is consumed if one is caught in a fire. And that by which what one eats gets digested, since it's the heat of the stomach through the acid, the hydrochloric acid that digests the food. And whatever else internally is fiery, and clung to, that's the internal fire element or heat element. And so the internal heat element, the external heat element, are simply the heat element. And that too should be seen as not mine, not I, not myself. And again, one becomes disenchanted and dispassionate towards the heat or fire element. Then the air element, this again might be internal or external, the internal air element. And some of this, the explanation here draws upon ancient Indian physiology, according to which there are these winds that go through the body. Okay, so internally belong to oneself. That is the upgoing winds, downgoing winds, winds in the belly, winds in the bowels, winds that course through the limbs, and most noticeably with the in-breath and the out-breath, and anything else within oneself that is air or airy, or we could say gas or gaseous and clung to. That's the internal air element. And again, both the internal air element, the external air element are simply air element, to be seen as not mine, not I, not myself. And when one sees it thus as it actually is with proper wisdom, then one becomes disenchanted with the air element, and the mind becomes dispassionate towards the air element. Okay, so these are the two ways of practicing the meditation on the elements. And we are going to be practicing the shorter or compressed way based upon detecting the characteristic in the body. And first, we're going to be focusing today and most of tomorrow on examining and investigating the internal elements. Then, in the last session on the elements tomorrow, I'm going to bring in the way we correlate the internal element and the external element to remove the sense of I and mine. Okay, so let us take our sitting position. We could dim the lights and I'll stop the share. Take your congenial, comfortable and congenial sitting posture. And first we establish general mindfulness in the body. Just set up broad, general, whole body mindfulness. And then you can do a sweeping movement of mindfulness through the body a few times, quickly going from the top of the head down through the head, through the neck, down through the arms, to the hands, and back up to the neck, and down through the torso, to the hips, the pelvic region, the buttocks, and then down the legs to the feet. Do it a few times, quickly in succession. Now, in this session, we're going to be focusing exclusively on the earth element. The earth element is the foundation for the other three elements. And we're going to be choosing as the object of discernment, the focal point for discernment, the earth element through its most distinctive characteristic, which we might call solidity, hardness, substantiality. And we're going to be using slow body scans in order to try to find that property of hardness or solidity. And to begin, we choose something in the body that is obviously hard and solid. We want to feel the hardness and solidity internally, not through our hands, but it can be helpful for you to get some sense of hardness or solidity by using your hand to touch something that's hard and solid. For example, you could feel the top of the skull. Yeah, don't hesitate to use your hand to get that sense of hardness or solidity. And this takes patience and persistence because it's quite a subtle object. Okay, but start now with the top of the head and try to get a feeling of the skull in the head, in the hardness, the solidity, the substantiality of the skull. And you can press the teeth together, even click the teeth together to get a sense of hardness or solidity, resistance to the hardness of the teeth. And you can try to feel the jawbone. And you could even open and close the jaw, move the jaw, or open and close the mouth to to get some sense of the hardness of the jawbone. And now dwell on these objects, the skull, the teeth, the jawbone. Dwell on them for about a minute in silence to get the perception of hardness. And now we're going to start scanning the body slowly, looking for the earth element through the property of solidity or hardness. Even in the soft tissue, there is some solidity, substantiality, which is the manifestation of the earth element. So now scan through the head. We're not doing the face and the back of the head separately, but just scan through from the top of the head, through the entire head, looking for the hardness, solidity, substantiality of the head. You can go through from top of the head down to the jaw several times, over and over. Looking for hardness, solidity, substantiality. Now we move from the head to the neck. Go through the neck several times. Perhaps you could start with the spine. But bring in even the flesh of the neck, looking for that solidity or hardness. Then we go to the shoulders, and the collarbone, the shoulder bones obviously are hard. Try to discern the hardness of the right shoulder and the left shoulder. Then move down the arms, each arm in turn. You could focus on the bones of the arm first to get the sense of solidity, but then also bring in the flesh of the arms to look for the solidity of the earth element. Go down each arm in turn, right arm and left arm. Take it down to the hands, the hand bone, the finger bones, as well as the flesh of the hands and the fingers. If the characteristic doesn't appear easily, don't worry, don't be concerned. Because it's a matter of repeated scanning to get to subtler and subtler levels where the characteristic becomes more prominent. So go down the arms to the hands and the fingers. Okay, now we come back to the chest. I'm sorry, we come back to the neck. And then we're going to scan down the torso, not taking front and back separately, but just like we were sending an X-ray through the entire torso. So scan the entire torso, first the upper part of the torso, you could focus on the ribs and the sternum, that's the bone in front of the chest, to get the sense of hardness. Then come to the abdomen, where there's a lot of soft tissue, but still there's solidity, earth element within that soft tissue. Scan through it. Maybe go through the torso 2 or 3 times. Take front and back together. Then come to the pelvic region with the hip bones. Then you come to the buttocks and run through the buttocks. And the pubic region, again picking up the sense, even though it's soft, but look for the element of solidity, representing the earth element. Then go down the legs. Take the thighs first, right thigh and then left thigh. Right to the knee, and you can feel the hardness of the knee. Down the left thigh to the knee. Then down the lower leg, right, right leg. If your leg is against the mat, you could feel the resistance of the leg pressing against the mat. The ankle, hardness of the ankle. And the foot, especially the foot bones. The same thing with the left leg, the lower leg, to the ankle, the left foot, toe bones, and then come back up and take the entire body in its totality. And a few times, just focus on the body in its totality through the lens of hardness, solidity, substance, substantiality. You might do a few quick sweeps through the body, picking up any indications of solidity, hardness. If the characteristic doesn't become very clear, don't worry. It takes repeated and patient practice to make the aspect of hardness or solidity become prominent. So let's do another slow scan through the body. Start from the top of the head, move move slowly through the skull. Come to the jaw. Move down the neck. And come to the shoulders, right and left. Looking for a solid hardness, material substance. Then come down the arms, right arm, then left arm, to the hands and the fingers. Then come back to the neck, and then scan through the torso. First, the upper part of the torso, front and back together, just like you're cutting right through the torso. Then down through the abdomen and lower back. Looking for any indications, experiences of solidity, the feeling of hardness, of material substance. Then through the pelvic region, including the hips and down the groin area. And down through the buttocks. Feel the pressure of them against the seat. And then down the legs, right leg, and then the left leg. Take the upper leg first, the thighs, then the knees, then the lower leg, then the feet. Then come back to the body as a whole. And just for a minute or so, investigate the body, experience the body as a whole in terms of this property of solidity, material substance, the earth element. Okay, now you can relax and open your eyes and end the session. And we'll do now a period of walking meditation. Let us make it 25 minutes. So be back in your seat at 8:25, and then we'll have another period of the scanning the body in terms of the earth element. Don't worry if it seems difficult at first. This really takes persistence, patience, and practice. But I'd say it's one of the most wonderful meditation practices to pick up the elements. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, I think I should guide this session again till you get more familiar with this method. Okay, so take your convenient and firm meditation position. Again, settle into the felt sense of the body in the immediate present. Yeah, I should mention before we start that the scanning method that we're using for the elements is very similar to the scanning method that we used the other day to get the experience of the whole body. The difference is that when we were scanning to get the experience of the whole body, we were just trying to observe any sensations, whatever, that appear in the body. But with the scanning for the elements, we are looking for the specific characteristics that reveal the presence of that element in the body. And in the case of the earth element, it's the aspect of what I call solidity, hardness, substance. We could even use the designation, the earthiness of the body. Okay, so let us begin from the top of the head, and we scan through the head, looking for the felt experience of hardness, solidity, earthiness. And you can use the skull as the special representation of the hardness of the head. But take in the fleshy parts also. The nose, the cheeks, the lips, the chin. And take in the jaw, then go to the neck, then from the neck, branch out to the shoulders, right and left shoulders. Then down the two arms, right arm and left arm. feeling the solidity in the muscles of the arm, in the bones of the arm, particularly prominent in the elbows. Then come down the lower arms, to the hands and the fingers. Then come back up to the neck, and then scan through the upper torso, through the chest, right through to the back. Scan down, looking for hardness, solidity, earthiness of the tissue, of the tissues and the bones. Then come to the abdomen and right through to the lower back. Even in the soft tissue of the internal organs, there is earthiness, material substance, solidity. And come to the pelvic region, the hips, the pubic area, down to the groin. Then to the buttocks, looking for that earthy property of solidity, material substance. Then from the buttocks, come to the thighs. First, right thigh, down to the right knee, left thigh, down to the left knee, then the lower legs, first right leg, from the knee down to the ankle, then the right foot together with the toes, then the left leg from the knee to the ankle, then the left foot together with the left toes, okay, and now you come to the top of the head and do a few quick sweeps down through the body, looking for the sense of solidity, material substance, so we can call this earthiness, the earthiness of the body, of the entire body. Just sweeping quickly right through the body 3 or 4 times. Whatever you can pick up, doesn't matter if there are gaps and blank areas. Whatever appears is good. Okay, now you take the body in its totality, kind of global sense of the body, but discern the body only in terms of the earth element, looking at the total body as manifesting the property of solidity, substantiality, earthiness, and hold that awareness for a couple of minutes. And you could use the mental note earthiness, earthiness, or earth element, earth element. Okay, now I want you to do the slow scan on your own. You should already know the method. When you come to a particular region, you hold the attention there for a little while. If the property of earthiness doesn't appear, then just don't delay, then just move on to the next region. And so continue in that way to slowly scan through the body from the top of the head to the feet and the toes. You're on your own now. And if you finish the scan, then you do 3 or 4 sweeps through the body and then hold the total awareness of the body through in terms of the earth element for a couple of minutes. Isn't the element meditation fun? It takes a lot of work, but I find it to be a lot of fun. Okay, we continue with this tomorrow, and tomorrow we proceed from the earth element, then we bring in the air element, and again back to the earth element, then we bring in the heat or fire element, and then finally we bring in the water element. So by the time we finish tomorrow, we'll have covered all four elements, and then we bring in the internal external combination. Okay, so let us end the day, very busy and intense day of practice, with the sharing of the merits. So we arouse the mind of loving kindness, and through our dedicated practice of the Dharma in the course of this full day, we've generated a great vast treasury of merits, and we want to share these merits with other beings. So first, you could think of your parents, if they've passed away, or any other relatives who have passed away, and invite them to rejoice in the merits of your practice. And think of any friends who might have passed away and share your merits with them. And then we bring to mind the devas, the deities, the Dharma protecting deities. And we ask them to rejoice in our merits and to protect the good Dharma in the world. And then we share the merits with all other invisible beings, the yakshas, the bhutas, the pretas, and all other beings, hoping that by rejoicing they'll be well and happy. And then we spread our metta over the entire world with the wish that all beings will be well, happy, and safe, and all their good aims and purposes in life be fulfilled. Okay, continue to generate thoughts of loving kindness, and I'll recite the verses for sharing the merits. Akasata cha bhumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanam akasata cha bhumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu te sanam akasata cha bhumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu mang parang dukkha pata nidukkha bhaya pata nibhaya Soka patachani soka hantu sabepi panino. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. And then you say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, we end the day with 3 half bows to the Buddha, and Venerable Hongzhan will lead us in the bows. First bow, second bow, third bow. Okay. Good night, everyone, and hope.
Right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bante.
Bante.
Thank
Sadhu.
you.
Good
Good
night.
night, dear Bante.
Sadhu, sadhu.